A lot of big tournaments in the past year have had late registration or a top player or two or a good handful not sign up in time for a tournament, and then registration closes, and then all of a sudden, whether it's on social media or some web form, we find out later that one top player hasn't signed up, and so therefore they can't enter. And Smashers, as a whole, even going back to like the early days of tournaments, we've always been a really close knit group, and because we're family, we've always tended to err on the side of, oh, we'll let you in. Even at the local level, we'd always say, oh, like, yeah, just come by. You made the drive. We're not a big community. We're all for one another. So, yes, like, just come. Just let us know when you're going to play, and we'll schedule your match accordingly. So we've always had this long history of, like, we're not really official. Our tournaments, back in the day, were 30 people. So, honestly, if you're an hour late, our tournament ends at 8:30 p.m. instead of 7:30 p.m. And who cares? Dinner's a little later. Everybody can play friendlies, and so it all kind of works out. And so we've had this culture where even if we had like online registration or pre-registration, if you do it late, a lot of the TOs, they understand. They go, okay, like, we'll add you in. Now, in recent years, even if you look at the Mayhem and Super Smash Sundays, they actually require pre-registration, and the reason why is because it takes a long time to register 200 people. So imagine, like, at the beginning of a tournament, you open at 11, everybody's late, they all want to sign up in line. It actually takes a lot of time to not only take all the registrants and make sure that the list is accurate, you also have to seed, you have to input them into TO or challenge, and then you have to make sure the brackets are correct. So that whole process can take a really long time, and because tournaments are so big, a lot of tournaments can't afford to do late registration. If you guys remember Genesis 1, it had on-site registration, which was the worst thing that you could do for yourself. A lot of people remember that Genesis was a phenomenal tournament. It had Mango versus Armada, but that registration line was horrendous. I never recommend doing it. A lot of tournaments are really large, and because of that, because they have like multiple games, they have to logistically coordinate everything. So, if you're a player like King that plays in 6 games, a good TO like Juggle Guy will make sure that King is not playing in the same way for anything. And there's a lot of coordination that has to happen with seeding, where you don't want too many people from the same region playing, or else the pool sucks. Like, what if you played your best friend in round 2? What if you have melee singles and Smash 4 doubles at the same time? Well, that won't work. So there's a lot of pre-coordination that needs to happen. And just to give the TO an ease of mind of not having to worry about adding more people, they usually set a hard deadline of about 2 to 3 weeks. And once that barrier breaks, they say, well, okay, like, registration has stopped. I don't want to worry about anything. Pools take a lot of time to organize. The TO will want to worry about other things like building logistics, getting equipment, and getting all that fun stuff. So they want to be at a certain point where they say, hey, like, I do not want to think about registration anymore. So that's a TO's perspective, and as a TO myself, and having to deal with quote-unquote top player privilege for a long time, it's actually really frustrating when sometimes a player gives me attitude. A top Falco player that once lived in NorCal kind of gave me grief because he was 2.5 hours late to singles. Pools were already halfway done, and this guy expected me to put him into pools as if nothing happened. And because he didn't enter, I already seeded the pools, so no matter where I put him, it would have been unfair to somebody else. And so obviously in those cases, like, definitely not. But now we live in a whole new universe of modern day streaming where the audience may matter actually more than the people at the tournament. Well, I wouldn't say that directly, but the fact that teams are sponsoring top players, that Melee got 203,000 at EVO, means that viewership actually has some power over how the tournament is run, whether people like it or not. I know that Leffen has complained, like, hey, like, I don't want to wait forever for stream matches. I don't like the way the tournaments run, and a lot of tournaments have to structure themselves around getting maximized viewership because it grows the game. It grows sponsorship awareness. It's the reason why a lot of these big esports teams have picked up, players, is because it generates a lot of interest. So if you completely dodge the viewership aspects of it, then there's no infrastructure, and players like Armada and Leffen wouldn't have sponsors to fly them over to the U.S. You wouldn't have Tempo Storm flying out West Balls and exit tournaments. Mango wouldn't be part of Cloud9 if Melee wasn't big. So if you're complaining about the esports side of things and saying, like, I hate esports, but keep in mind, part of our growth in extending our arms to a greater community has led to, having, like, Leffen come to more than 2 tournaments a year. And it's led to, last year in the Summer Smash, like, Armada and Mango playing, like, every other week. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing to be quote-unquote esports. So I'm going a little off topic, and the reason why, like, top player privilege is interesting is because unlike other esports, players are responsible for themselves. So with a league team, if CLG needs to sign up for something like Worlds, if they make it to Worlds, if they need to sign up for, like, IEM, or if, like, I don't know, TSM needs to sign up for an event, like, the players don't have to worry about it. They only have to play the game. All the registration is handled by their team, or it's handled by the league. If you play CSGO, you play StarCraft, chances are you have, managers that take care of you, and the last thing you have to worry about is registration. Now, a lot of people wonder, well, like, why can't these big esports teams like Cloud9, or Tempo, or whatever, just register and take care of all those logistics for their players and be like managers? Well, it's kind of different. So the way that esports teams kind of work in their relationship with Smash is they view Smash players as this, like, nice, like, luxury that's not really needed. So they're like the Lamborghini in the driveway that's, like, nice to have for sports. Like, Armada's on my team, or Mango's not on my team. And if you look at how much they get paid, it's nowhere near, like, the extent of, like, what other esports makes. And so for the most part, teams like Cloud9, Alliance, like, they don't really care about their players. They don't even know when the big tournaments are. So players are on their own to register, to make sure that they work with the travel coordinator to get the correct flights, to get hotel rooms. They actually have a stake in trying to make sure that happens. They're never going to ask their players, like, you have to go do this, we took care of everything, like they would with League of Legends players. So that kind of creates a fundamental issue, because players are getting bigger, their egos are also getting bigger, for better or worse, and so they don't want to worry about that. A player like Mango will be like, I'm Mango, I'm the GOAT, I don't worry about registration, they're going to let me in anyway. And to be honest, that's like an argument that Scar has, like, these players shouldn't have to worry about being late to register, which shows that there's, like, a fundamental flawed system. But on the flip side, a lot of people complain, like, oh, for viewership, these top players have to be there. Like, how could you not let this player in? That's ridiculous. But on the flip side, from the TO standpoint of things, you can kind of phrase it in a different way to sound equally ridiculous. Like, come on, Mutaking, you had 5 months to register for EVO. You even had a second chance the day after registration closed to register. You chose not to register, and then you ask a third time. Well, that sounds as ridiculous as not allowing the player in. When they had a 5 to 6 month window, it was well announced. At least for these larger events like EVO, Big House, Apex, people are hounding people. TOs are hounding people, saying, like, hey, you gotta sign up. Signups are due in a week. Prices raise up in a week. Signups end in a month. Signups end in 2 weeks. Signups end tomorrow. And we still see a lot of players miss out for some reason. They think, like, oh, I just gotta sign up last minute, and then they forget, and then the TOs are in bad light. So it creates a weird system, and like I said before, other games, they don't have to worry about it. So there's some sort of fundamental flaw. And the way I propose, this gets fixed is that there has to be people that manage these players, that give them more than a paycheck, that will take care of these things. And so I'm looking at you, Crimson Blur, I'm looking at you, D1, because Twitch viewership relies on top players going to tournaments. Just kidding, you guys are busy, but I'm half kidding. But at the end of the day, there needs to be some sort of infrastructure change where top players, like, if they say they're going to an event, that some person takes care of all the logistics and everybody is happy. We don't have top players' irresponsibility, like, show and put pressure on TOs to not make hard lines, to kind of give leeway, and to let players run all over them. Because the last thing you really want at an event is a TO with no backbone that allows 15 minutes here, that allows an hour here, and doesn't let the tournament finish on time. That's, like, the worst thing that can also happen, is that you're too lenient and you don't run. players don't respect whether or not you are actually going to DQ anybody, because they're going to say, well, you didn't DQ this player, so you can't DQ me, and technically they're right. For me, like in the future, like for a lot of tournaments where like a top player doesn't sign up, I'm kind of like hard line and say like, too bad, you had 4 to 5 months. And if the TL really made an honest effort to private message like top players, say like, hey, like Armada or Mango or whoever it may be, hey, can you sign up for this tournament? It's in 1 day, registration closes, can you do it? If the TL made an honest effort and they did their due diligence, they can only go so far in their responsibility to say like, hey, like I did my best to get them to sign up, they didn't sign up, I made hard deadlines, I'm sorry they cannot enter, but I did my best. I think that's fine. I don't think at that point a TO is obligated, and by TO I mean tournament organizer, should be obligated at any point to say like to feel guilty for not letting them in. On the flip side, there are other tournament organizers that don't even ask. They don't publicize their event, so nobody has any idea. And for those TOs, you know, I say like, you guys didn't make it clear your expectations and deadlines. I think you should kind of lower the rope and let them in. And it's a sucky system because, you know, people on Reddit, on social media will always complain like, why can't this player enter? Well, I think if TO was hardline from the beginning and they made it very clear on what the deadlines were, I think it's fair to not include them. But at the end of the day, moving forward, I think there needs to be some sort of system where some middleman takes care of all this, and so that we never have this again in the future, where we never know if like top player X is coming or not, and then he forgets, and then everything goes downhill from there.